Hi everybody, I'm Stephen Reichlin, and man do I have a special treat for you. We have secured an A5 Wagyu Packer brisket from Crowd Cow and from Kagoshima, Japan, and we have the Broadmoor Master Butcher, Justin Wilson. Justin, we've enjoyed your meats for years and years.
Thank you.
Look at this monster.
This
beautiful. Is incredible.
So generally on a typical Packer brisket, your flat is not quite as long.
Okay.
And this section right in here is actually where the brisket's gonna kind of connect through the arm and into the neck. And you start seeing the transition into the neck muscles up here. And again, once you're starting to look at the underside too, you can actually get a good look.
Yep.
And you can see where this brisket is actually attached to the rib sections on the cow itself. And underneath this is all that delicious meat that you're gonna wanna eat up.
Well, let's see you do your magic.
All right, we ready to get this open?
Let's go.
All right. So, well, just touching the brisket fat on the other side, I can feel it.
You can feel it melting.
You can already feel it. That's why you don't want to overhandle the product at all.
Move that off.
This is definitely bigger than what I generally process here at the Broadmoor every day as well. And again, just looking at this, you see where this is connected to the ribs. What we want to do is we actually want to take some of this meat off. So we're just going to come right in through here and just do some traditional seam cutting.
Yeah. Now that's interesting because in America, we do not seam cut, right? We use a bandsaw and we just sort of cut the meat off where we want it to. Explain seam cutting
So
for us.
seam cutting is the easiest thing that I can explain to anybody that's coming into my shop and learning any sort of butchery the first time. Is butchering is essentially creating something out of nothing. And what we're doing here is we're just following this line. So before we flip this over and go into this, what we're gonna do is we wanna trim some of this fat down because essentially this giant, dense, hard fat does not render the same way. This is gonna create a barrier between the meat and the smoke. So we wanna take this down nice and clean. Good. So you see up here, this is some thick fat.
That's a lot.
We're just taking chunks off. We could do other things with this, incorporating into different types of sausages. But
well, let me ask you, I like to make something I call brisket butter, which is you render the brisket fat, and I like to do it in a smoker so you get a smoke flavor. Then you collect it, put it in jars, it solidifies in the fridge, you smear it on grilled bread. Is that something we can do with this fat?
Absolutely delicious. And what I would do too is make sure that as we're taking some of this down, we're being very careful not to go into the meat.
Right, so always under trim rather than over trim.
Exactly. You can always correct, you can never fix an error.
You bet. I like to leave about a baby finger's, about a centimeter's thick finger of fat on the brisket. Beautiful. And your knife looks, it's gliding, like gliding through butter.
It is, it's beautiful. Dense fat is what we want to take off of here. And sometimes you start seeing this right here. Sometimes on Packer briskets, that will actually kind of oxidize and turn kind of gray. You don't want that on there.
That's that feather, I call it that feathery meat on the sides.
And even with something as beautiful as this, I would still take off just the slightest portion. So this is where we tie into that upper portion of the shoulder, and then it starts rolling up into the neck muscle. And just to show you kind of a schematic, generally a Packer brisket's gonna just come right around here like this. And that's where you would start harvesting the neck meat. We start getting down into here, and again, talking about just following
the natural seams.
We start breaking this apart a little bit. We'll come right down here off of the back side.
The marbling in that thing.
Just little flicks.
Again, you can't undo a big cut.
But this is
so you've taken the neck piece off there.
You can see when we start getting into here, a little bit more of this residual fat. This is essentially your Packer brisket. Some people will remove this portion up here.
I think we can remove that. Yeah, give it a look.
Just want to go flush?
Yeah,
roll
sure.
it across?
Yeah. You know, Aaron Franklin, the great brisket master from Austin, Texas, talks about a streamlined shape to a brisket. He rounds the corners, you have airflow coming through in the smoker, and if there are no sharp corners, you get better airflow. Good. So A5 is the highest category, the highest rating for Wagyu beef. It is the most richly marbled. It makes prime beef look like beef jerky. I mean, it is so rich, so incredibly well marbled. So we're actually going to do an all-night smoke. And around about 6 o'clock, we're going to come up, we're going to fire up the smoker. We're going to be using a big green egg because we know we can control the temperature and the airflow to the degree and to the minute. And we will put it on to smoke at 7 tonight. It will probably be ready about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll pull it off. We will rest it in an insulated cooler for 2 hours, and we will serve it at lunch tomorrow. So how cool is that going to be? This is an exclusive piece of meat. You can't get it anywhere else, only at Crowd Cow. Here we have our Packer brisket. Here we have our shaved, it's going to be our beef, I guess what you call it, extension, brisket extension or neck extension. Our fat for rendering, and this is going to be our burgers.
Yep, this can be burgers, sausage, anything you want to do with it.
Justin, man, thank you so much. This was so informative. And thank you, Crowd Cow, for bringing this incredible A5 Wagyu here.